Two people, same age, both 26. Same starting salary, both open an investment account on the same day in the same month and begin putting $250 a month into the same broad market index fund. 30 years pass. Person one is 56, coffee in hand, looking at a balance just under $500,000. No inheritance, no crypto windfall, no six-figure bonus year. Just $250 a month, untouched for 3 decades. Person two is also 56. They invested for a while, until around year 5 when the market dropped sharply, they got nervous, pulled everything out, and told themselves they'd restart once things calmed down. Life moved in. The account never really recovered its momentum. Today, the balance reads $38,000. Same starting point, same initial amount, same index fund. A 30-year gap of roughly $460,000. The difference between them wasn't income, it wasn't intelligence, it was one thing. Person one understood what the early years of compounding are supposed to look like, and person two didn't. When you don't know what normal looks like, normal feels like failure, and failure prompts you to quit. Today, we're going to fix that. The reason most people abandon long-term investing isn't laziness, it's that they were told what to do without being shown what to expect. Invest early, be patient, compounding is powerful, and then they watch $250 a month turn into maybe $180 in returns over 18 months and feel deceived. You haven't been deceived. You've just been handed the destination without the map. Here's the map. Take $10,000 invested at 10% annually, roughly the S&P 500's long-run historical average. After 10 years, about $25,900. After 20, $67,000. After 30, $174,000. After 40 years, same $10,000, same 10%, over $450,000. Now look at where that growth is concentrated. The final 10 years, years 30 through 40, produce more than 60% of the total lifetime gains. Over $270,000 out of $450,000 arrives in the last decade. The first 10 years, just 3.5% of total lifetime returns. 3.5%. The early years of compounding aren't slow because something's wrong. They're slow because of mathematics. The curve is genuinely flat at the beginning and genuinely steep at the end. And the people who build real wealth are the ones who understood this before they lived through the flat part, not after. Warren Buffett was worth roughly $1 million at 30. By 50, around $300 million. He became a billionaire at 56. Nearly all of his current net worth accumulated after his 50th birthday, not because he got smarter, but because the snowball he'd been rolling since age 11 finally hit the steep part of the hill. He described it as finding wet snow and a really long hill. Most people never give the hill enough time because the first 7 years look like a flat parking lot. There's a documented cognitive pattern called exponential growth bias. Research shows that roughly a third of people perceive compound growth as essentially linear. They see the curve, their brain draws a straight line, and concludes this isn't working. Here's a classic demonstration. If a lily pad doubles in size every day and covers a lake completely on day 48, what day does it cover half the lake? Nearly everyone says day 24. The actual answer is day 47. The lake is less than 1% covered until day 24. Then it finishes the other 99% in the next 23 days. Your investment account is that lily pad. The first 7 years look like days 1 through 25, barely anything visible, and the last 7 years, if you're still in it, look like days 42 through 48, genuinely difficult to believe. The problem isn't the market. The problem is that your brain is not wired to intuitively feel exponential curves. Once you see this clearly, you cannot unsee it, and that's the entire foundation of what we're building today. The first number is 7. 7 years is the minimum horizon before compounding starts to feel real, before you have enough evidence to stop operating entirely on faith. It maps to a piece of math called the Rule of 72, which is over 500 years old and still the most useful thing in any investor's toolkit. Divide 72 by your expected annual return, and you get your doubling time. At 10% returns, your money doubles roughly every 7.2 years. That first doubling is the reference point your brain has been waiting for. Before it, you're running on trust. After, you have proof. The historical data supports this directly. Looking at every rolling 7-year period in the S&P 500 history, going back to 1926, every single one has produced a positive average return. Every single one. The market has survived world wars, depressions, 14 recessions, the 2008 financial crisis, a global pandemic, and a brief era when digital images of monkeys sold for $500,000. 7 years has always been enough time to come out ahead. The investor, however, is considerably more fragile, which is what the second number addresses. The second number is 3. 3 types of assets that behave differently from each other in your portfolio. Not complicated, just structurally sound. Broad market index funds should be the majority of your holdings. They do most of the work, return roughly 10% annually over long periods, and require almost no active management. Set it and genuinely forget it. Dividend-producing assets, stocks in established companies that pay you quarterly, provide a second compounding mechanism. The dividends buy more shares, which pay more dividends, compounding running a second shift. Defensive holdings, bonds, treasuries, stable assets, exist for one reason that nobody explains properly until it's too late. They don't make you rich. They keep you from panic selling your stocks at the bottom of a crash because you have something else in the account that isn't on fire. When the market drops 30% and your defensive holdings are down 5%, you feel rattled but not destroyed. You keep buying. And buying during a crash when everyone else is selling is precisely how the gap between long-term investors gets created. You don't need a sophisticated allocation strategy. You need representation across these 3 buckets. A target date retirement fund does this automatically if you'd rather not think about it. The third number is 1. 1 annual increase in your contribution amount. Every January, raise what you're investing, even by a small percentage. This sounds like a footnote. It is not a footnote. Invest $250 a month at 8% annual returns for 30 years, ending balance around $375,000. Now take the same scenario, but raise your contribution by 5% each January. Year 2, $263. Year 3, $276. By year 10, you're around $400 a month. The increases are gradual enough that you barely feel them in the budget. But over 30 years, that one adjustment nearly doubles the ending balance to roughly $720,000. Research from a major brokerage found that investors who increased contributions by even 1% annually ended up with roughly 25% more wealth after 20 years compared to those who held contributions flat. The mechanism is simple. You're giving compounding more to work with, and you're doing it at the exact time when the curve is steepening.
The adjustment takes 4 minutes once a year. The ROI on those 4 minutes across a working life is measured in hundreds of thousands of dollars. Before we close, I need to talk about what you will actually feel during this journey, because knowing the phases in advance is the difference between surviving them and quitting because of them. Phase 1, doubt. This arrives in years 1 through 3. You open the app and realize that after 20 months of consistent investing, your account has grown by less than you would have earned from a few extra overtime shifts. Your brain starts running alternative math. What if you'd put this toward the car, or toward a friend's startup, or just into anything that felt more immediate? This phase is generated entirely by the flat, early section of the compounding curve. You are not doing anything wrong. You are doing everything correctly. The math just hasn't become visible yet. Phase 2, frustration. Around years 3 to 5, you've started calling yourself an investor. The account has real money in it, but the identity and the balance feels slightly misaligned. The curve is actually bending at this point, you just can't see around the corner yet. Frustration almost always precedes the first period where returns start to feel interesting. It's the sensation of turning off the oven 30 seconds before the food is done. Phase 3, panic. The market drops hard. Not a little, significantly. The way it dropped 34% in 23 trading days in early 2020, the fastest crash of that magnitude in market history. Your account goes below what you've personally contributed. You check it, close the app, reopen it 6 minutes later as if it might have changed. Here's what the data shows. The 2008 crash was fully recovered by 2013. The March 2020 crash was fully recovered by August of the same year, 5 months. Investors who sold in April 2020 locked in a real loss and missed the entire recovery. Investors who kept buying were purchasing shares at a 30% discount and were whole again by summer. Research tracking investor behavior since 1985 has found every single year for 15 consecutive years that the average equity investor significantly underperforms the market, not from picking bad investments, but from emotional timing decisions. Panic doesn't protect you. It transfers your potential gains to whoever was on the other side of your panic sale. Doubt means you're early, not wrong. Frustration means the curve is about to bend. Panic means assets are on sale. The only investors who get genuinely hurt are the ones who leave the store. If you've ever pulled money out during a crash, paused contributions when your account looked flat, or quietly stopped investing because life got expensive, that's not a character flaw. It's the entirely predictable response to a system that never showed you the map. The question is whether you know it now before these phases arrive again. Let's run it with two real people. Both are 29. Both start investing $350 a month at 8% annual returns with zero starting balance. Person A sets a firm 7-year floor, commits to staying in regardless of what the market does in that window, holds all 3 asset categories, recognizes the emotional phases when they arrive and doesn't act on them, raises contributions 5% every January without exception. Person B also invests $350 a month. Not reckless, not financially irresponsible, just doesn't have the framework. In year 4, a market correction triggers a move to cash. They wait 9 months for things to settle. Contributions stay flat every year because something always comes up. At 39, the difference is noticeable but not alarming. At 49, it's uncomfortable. At 65, 36 years from the same starting point, Person A has approximately $1.15 million. Person B has around $410,000. Same starting position, same market, a gap of $740,000, not from one catastrophic decision, but from 11 months sitting in cash, flat contributions for 3 decades, and missing the late-stage acceleration because the foundation wasn't fully built. Person A didn't do anything heroic. They just didn't interrupt the machine. Here's what to do this week. Set a specific date, 7 years from today, and write it down somewhere visible. Before that date, your only job is not to quit. Check that you hold exposure across the 3 asset categories: broad index, dividend, and defensive. If you want the simplest possible version, a target date retirement fund covers all of this automatically. Automate your monthly contributions so the decision doesn't require your willpower every month. Write down right now what you will do in each of those 3 phases, because when the market drops 30% and your rational mind goes offline, "I'll see how I feel" is not a plan. It's a transfer of wealth to whoever is on the other side of your panic sale. And schedule your annual contribution increase on a recurring calendar reminder for the same date every year. That's the framework. No ticker to monitor, no clever moves to make, no moment of financial genius required. Compounding doesn't care how smart you are. It doesn't care about your salary, your degree, or your awareness of macroeconomic conditions. It cares about exactly one thing: whether you left it alone long enough. The people who build extraordinary wealth aren't financial geniuses. They're just the people who were too consistent to quit. Go be consistent. Subscribe if this reframed something. Next, the exact tax-advantaged account order, where to put money first, second, and third, and why the sequence changes the final number by more than most people realize.